I won't let him anywhere near you.
It seems we're at an impasse then. I'm freezing my ass off in here.
Freezing? How are you not sweating your ass off?
If only that were the case. Unfortunately, this tropical weather does nothing for me. Nobody understands. However, this might warm the blood.
This year has started off pretty big, with games like a Dragon Infinite Wealth being one of the early blockbusters. I've personally been looking forward to Infinite Wealth since its announcement. It may be the 8th game in the franchise, but technically it's only the 2nd game that has went in this new turn-based direction. Infinite Wealth also sets itself up to be a farewell to series' main protagonist Kazuma Kiryu, being a way to officially pass the torch over to Ichiban, the new main character of the Like a Dragon series. Not only that, but this game also finally gets us out of Japan. Now we're set in beautiful Hawaii with a new adventure of Ichiban trying to find his mother. There also been some new additions added to the turn-based gameplay to flesh it out. Yakuza 7, or Like a Dragon rather, was very simplistic in its turn-based RPG mechanics, probably because it was the first time that the series ever went this direction. So they got their feet wet with the basics, and now they're able to advance it in the sequel. So with the new setting, evolved gameplay, and an epic story that lasts over 100 hours, you would think this game would be an easy purchase, correct? But it's kind of complicated. What's a Yakuza game without an action-packed story? Mixed with social and political commentary about real-world issues, Infinite Wealth keeps this tradition by speaking about the disinformation age, the issues with cameras, social media, and privacy. It also tackles topics such as atonement, friendship, and forgiveness. The main issue, however, with Infinite Wealth is that all of this is only explained on the surface level. See, other Yakuza games actually have only a few key points that they want to hammer down, whereas this game has so many that they never get a chance to properly break down any of these complex issues. This wasn't an issue for past Yakuza games, as those games had enough time to slowly build up and go over each of its main topics. They also didn't have so many topics that they end up forgetting any of them by the end. And it's actually fascinating that Infinite Wealth actually does such a poor job explaining itself, seeing as it's over 100 hours long. In fact, out of saying something as simple as recording people without their permission is bad, or that friendship is powerful, there really is nothing for this game to actually say. The frustrating part is that, like every Yakuza game before it, it starts off with a mystery. A murder is taking place and you don't really know what's going to happen later on in the game, and you're hoping that the game will slowly explain itself as time goes on, but like I said, none of this really ever pays off. So it won't be until halfway through the game that you'll realize that what you've been investing in never increases. This kind of thing happens when a writer or a team does too many things at once and can't really flesh out any ideas. And that's exactly what happened here. And it's not just it trying to deal with its political topics or social issues. It also struggles with giving Ichiban a proper sequel while also sending Kiryu off in style. It won't even take you to get to the end of the game before you realize that they had to cut corners with the story and had to speed things up and miss a bunch of key points that really never add up to anything, overall leaving the player confused due to all the multiple loose ends and sloppy mop-up they had to do to finally make things sorta make sense. And trust me, I am stretching that sorta pretty hard. Without trying to spoil any of the details, one of the major villains is almost forgotten by mid-game and returns briefly in a short cutscene. The crazy thing was that this villain was so unrecognizable, I didn't even realize I was looking at them while this cutscene was playing. And when they finally explained who exactly this person was, no, I did not feel satisfied, nor did I think it was some big payout at the end from it. I just was confused, lost, and wondering what this person was to begin with. It came off very awkward and erratic. Now, Hawaii itself does seem to be a big change for the series, but sadly, this is just superficial at best. As much time as you spend in Hawaii, I gotta say I learned basically nothing about Hawaii. In contrast to any Yakuza game set in Japan, where the developers go out their way to make sure that people not from Japan understand the nuances of Japanese culture, here it's like they completely dropped the ball and didn't really talk about anything to do with Hawaii. In fact, most of the people that you'll actually meet are actually Japanese or some variation of Asian descent. Now, before anyone says it, I want to be clear, I am very much aware that people who are native to Hawaii do originate from Asia, but that is not what I'm referring to. I am talking about that most people that you bump into are just straight up Japanese people literally from Japan, from the Japanese mafia that happen to come to America. You rarely even deal with the fish out of water trope that you would expect here. Ichiban barely knows English, and the game even goes out of its way to point this out to you. But they quickly forget about it. So either everyone can speak Japanese in Hawaii or Ichiban learn English off camera. This may come across as a small issue, but it caused me to lose immersion. Although the Yakuza franchise is known for its unrealistic situations and wacky moments, those things are typically relegated to side content. The franchise always made sure to keep anything canon reasonably believable. So when this issue comes up about the language barrier that they themselves point out early in the game, you can't really blame me for being confused on why it's never brought up ever again and is never an issue throughout the entire game. Infinite Wealth also has this unfortunate issue with wanting to be a love letter to old RPGs. You know, games like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. See, those games are strictly fictional, which means in those games they can practically add anything they want to that the imagination can cook up. The Yakuza franchise, or Like a Dragon, always tried to give a logical explanation to why things are happening, even when they seem kinda unbelievable. A great example of this is Ichiban's love for RPGs causes him to view regular people in the street as RPG monsters. It's also why fights seem to be turn-based. Again, it makes sense because, well, Ichiban loves video games so much that his imagination is running wild when he's in a fight, so that's how they explain it away with some form of logic. It's silly, but ultimately it works. But them wanting to keep this form of realism while paying homage to classic RPGs kind of put them in a box. You can see that clearly with the ridiculous villains that you will fight, which don't really fit in this framework that they created. I'm referring to deity-like enemies and even fictional monsters. Again, these are canon fights. These are not side quests where in side quests typically, we can write them off as this didn't really happen. We're talking again, main battles. All of this silliness left me disengaged, and it is not because I'm such a serious guy that I can't have a good laugh. I'm just someone that enjoys stories that have a point, don't waste my time, and make sense. And what I mean by make sense is within the realm of the universe that the creators made. They break their own rules constantly. Is everything bad in the writing? Well, the only part I liked was Kiryu's side of things. Now, again, his reasoning for even being a part of the story is extremely shallow to begin with, just like the rest of the story and its subject matter. But thanks to the many years of me having invested in Kiryu's story, I was happy to see him again. You essentially get to spend time with Kiryu as you get to explore this new chapter in his life. I personally don't believe anyone that's new to the franchise would care, so these segments only work for people who are series veterans like myself. So if you're a newcomer, all you're getting out of this is a less ridiculous side of the story, but trust me, even with that, eyes will still roll and teeth will be sucked. Because even Kiryu's side of the story, although less ridiculous, is still shallow and pretty outright stupid. To express how much I did not like this story, if everyone died at the end, I wouldn't have cared. As previously mentioned, Infinite Wealth is a turn-based RPG with plenty of side activities. Of course, you have the basics. Classes which shape the moves and the roles of your characters. Different types of gear with different ratings laced with different special elements applied to them. And of course, what's a turn-based RPG without summons? Now, one thing I really enjoyed was these new additions added, such as positioning that plays a big role in battle. Knocking an enemy into a wall, another baddie, or even near a teammate can do bonus damage. Doing an attack from behind deals extra damage, as well as doing an attack near a friend, which results in a tag team attack. These moves that involve your friends are only unlocked during social events. Throughout the game, you will grow bonds with your crew. whether it's in battle or hanging out with them doing side activities. Once you build up a relationship with these characters, you're able to do what they call a drink link. These serve as a conversation that weave into a bigger story where you get to learn more about your friends. Unlike the main story, every crew member has an actually engaging story that's easy to follow and makes some type of sense. But even if you don't care about the stories of your different crew members, I still suggest you do them because they reward you with great benefits in combat. Anytime a developer can satisfy two different sides of the community, that's a pretty good gameplay feature. So if you're like me that enjoyed the gameplay and was looking for a good story, I got both things out of it. But if you only want some benefit for gameplay, well, just do these side events and skip the dialogue. Although Infinite Wealth introduced a lot of new mechanics in its combat, it's still beginner friendly. As long as you stay at the proper level and at least one of your crew members has a weakness that they can exploit the enemy with, even someone that has never played a turn-based RPG should be able to easily get through this game. Now, if you are looking for more of a challenge, you can restrict yourself by making sure that you're slightly under level or doing the optional dungeons. If you're looking for an RPG that requires high levels of strategy, this isn't going to get it done, however. But if you're looking for something that's in the middle, this game is just for you. There's also a new gameplay mechanic called Sujimon battles. This is basically a Pokemon clone through and through. And surprisingly, it's actually a good one. In fact, I probably died more playing Sujimon than I've ever did playing a regular Pokemon game. This too is a turn-based RPG gameplay system, except now it's all about a 3-on-3 battle, where you have to collect different freaks throughout the city that have different elemental attacks, and as long as you build up your team the proper way, you should be able to get through battles pretty easily. The tricky part is making sure that you're the right level and you have enough speed so that you can get out moves quicker than your opponent. You want to make sure that you evolve your Sujimon, as that's something that I didn't do at first, because if you don't, you will not get too far in these battles. The brilliant thing about the Sujimon battles is although these are a different type of RPG gameplay mechanic, they actually can teach you a little bit something about the base game's combat. Plus, you have to do a lot of the base game's combat in order to unlock the Sujimon. So it kind of again serves as a dual purpose feature that weaves into one another. When it comes to side activities, this has to be my favorite new addition to the franchise. Something so good that I hope they bring back for another game. Heck, if they wanted to, they could probably even turn this into its own side game. The other main side activity is Dondoko Island. I'm gonna go ahead and be real with you guys. I tried to get into this. This was not for me. I'm just not into this type of thing. Basically, let's break down what it is. This is essentially a poor man's version of Animal Crossing. There is some interesting things about it. You get to build up a little island. You get to destroy some trash and collect different materials and build it up, invite guests over, and then you can earn some money. But for me, this mechanic, this whole gameplay experience was just too slow and so left field from the rest of the gameplay loop that it's really its own thing. But it's not fleshed out enough or even that much fun to invest that much time into it. Unlike Like a Dragon's Ichiban Confections, which was its own thing, sorta, it at least wove into the main gameplay, and that was actually something fun and passive to do. This takes too much time and effort to actually invest into, and it's again too freaking slow. Like everything you do is slow. The gameplay feels clunkier than the main game. It's very awkward, and I see the potential. I don't want to be so negative about it, because like I said, if this was its own thing that they put more time into, they could probably make this into a side activity or even a side game. But this just being slapped into this game just seems awkward. And realistically, if it took me 130 hours to beat the main game, who in the heck is about to spend even more time in this side activity? That if you want this experience, like I said, just go play Animal Crossing. It's actually a better game, and it actually does what this is trying to do 10 times better. The last thing when it comes to the gameplay are the regular side quests that they call sub-stories. This is a warning for probably the entire Yakuza franchise. And yes, this is just my opinion, but your opinion may align with mine, so I'm going to give you some advice. What you should do with these sub-quests is you should try them. Read and understand the dialogue, and if you realize you do not like this writing, skip them but still do them, because the rewards you get from doing them is always good. The reason I'm saying to skip the dialogue is because every Yakuza game I try, and I swear I try to sit there and listen to these stories, but they are dumb. They boil down to one or two things: being outright stupid or trying to be sentimental, but then end on a stupid note. There was one sentimental story where this man was trying to get some ice for his wife that was dying to simulate snow because she wanted to see the snow before she died. And by the time the end of this sub quest ended, I was up there hanging out with a grown man that was dressed up as a baby. Like, it just killed the entire mood that was supposed to be sentimental and just became something dumb. And that's basically the plot for every side quest. It's just stupid and it doesn't make any sense. And maybe it's that I don't understand Japanese humor, but I don't think that's the case because I laugh at anime and I laugh at other things that Japanese people create. So I just think that whoever's doing this stuff isn't funny, in my opinion. So like I said, if you're like me and you realize that you don't really like the stories or these stories are boring you, just skip them and still complete the quest so you can get the rewards. Before we wrap up gameplay, I want to cover one more thing, and that's the controversy behind the New Game Plus. Now, I don't have the New Game Plus DLC, but for those who don't know, every Yakuza game has had a New Game Plus where you're able to transfer all your old data to a new file and then play the game over essentially with increased enemies, difficulty, and levels. This time around, you have to pay money for that feature, and I'm gonna tell you right now, don't waste your time buying it. Why would I say that? It's because logically speaking, unless you are a diehard Yakuza fan, there is no reason, there is no way that I can see the average person who just spent 100+ hours on the main game is about to play this game all over again. This is a game that's so long, and like I already said, the story ain't even that good. You're probably never gonna play this game again once you beat it. And if you want to turn it on and play it again just to get into, like, you know, some of the fights and do some of the RPG stuff, well, just play the game from the ending, because once you beat the game, this is not a spoiler, this is just a gameplay feature. Once you beat the game just puts you back in the open world and enemies level up with you. It's not the same as a New Game Plus where you start over, but I don't want to start over. This story wasn't good to begin with, so it really just was a pointless feature. Now, I do hear that this New Game Plus does have extra dungeons, but these dungeons are just randomly generated dungeons, and this game already comes packed with 2 randomly generated dungeons as is. You don't need any more. This game is packed with tons of gameplay and things to do. You don't need that extra DLC. If you want to go buy it, but I'm gonna tell you, you're not missing nothing. If you're a trophy hunter, you can get the platinum without it. It's not needed. When it comes to visuals, Infinite Wealth keeps up the series standard by giving us high quality visuals that look great. Now, I'll be honest though, all of this game looks great. I don't see a significant leap from the last game, but honestly, it really didn't need it. Hawaii adds a much needed brightness and color not found in drabby Japan. And of course, characters are highly detailed like always, and cutscenes are shot very well. Now, one big controversy with this game was the voice acting of Kiryu in English. I personally played the entire game in English, and not one time did I find Kiryu's voice to be bad or even off-putting. He never sounded awkward, and if Kiryu did speak English normally, this voice, as in tone, does match what I would imagine Kiryu would sound like. The only time the voice acting sound bad was when you do karaoke. If you don't know, Kiryu's original Japanese voice actor is an actual singer, and the English voice actor isn't, so that kind of explains that, but it's not too bad. But you gotta take this with a grain of salt. I don't play these games for the karaoke part, so I rarely ever heard him sing, so maybe that's why it's not a big deal to me. And speaking of the rest of the crew, everyone else sounded great as well. Although, going back to the main story, I wish they just had something intelligent to say. But when it comes to expressing emotions and getting things out their mouth, everyone sounds pretty much on point. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth was a nice step in the right direction when it came to its gameplay and presentation. But it was a huge step backwards when it came to its story. I stopped caring about a beloved character that I had over 6 games of experience with. The damage has already been done, but the franchise itself isn't exactly cooked. I feel ultimately Infinite Wealth is a stain on the franchise, but it can be washed away. All they need to do is stick to only focusing on a few interesting topics. Please stop turning Ichiban into a 40-year-old version of Naruto. Stop bringing Kiryu back, just let him rest. And learn when enough is enough when it comes to its story and even its added gameplay systems and mechanics. It feels like they took the term infinite to heart. The game has too much going on without enough time for it to develop. It even has too much additional gameplay content that most people won't even play, and too much time is needed to complete the game. Despite all these issues, I still think you should try Infinite Wealth. Just wait for a big discount and really be in the mode to play a classic RPG, especially if the story fails you like it did me.
Not yet.
Hey, handsome.
You son! What the hell are you doing? Just giving you a little change of scenery.
Thank you.
By doing that? How thoughtful.